There's the clicker, and the sound is working as well. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all excited because I have a lot of stuff I'd like to present, and I have a lot of data also because as a guy who is coming out of a very technological space, I always want to prove stuff with data, right? So I just don't want to talk, I also want to prove. So I thought for this presentation I come with a theme, and I'm a big fan of science fiction, so I like Star Trek as well. So I thought we talk about the new content generation. If you do not know a couple of things about Searchmetrics or myself, but Aaron made a great presentation. Most important is we're in this space since almost 18 years, and very important is that the only slide that you see SEO here, for example, is this slide. In all the other slides, we will talk about content, content marketing, and data. By the way, you can download the slides. There's no need to make any kind of quick notes. You can download them and then step in later. So what's my challenge for today? So these are the voyages of this presentation, and we as content marketers, content strategists, or content writers, we all share the same problems. And some of these problems are about the processes that we have. We have a lot of diverse processes. And when you ask, for example, 10 companies, how do you write content, you get at least 11 different answers. Because every company has different processes. Even within the company, they have different processes. And there's a lot of emails going back and forth, and if you really want to create content agile and driven by objectives, then you need to change a couple of things. So that's why I thought it really makes sense to talk about a couple of problems that we all have. So one of these problems is, what should I write about, right? So we all use tools like Google stuff like Analytics, Keyword Planner from AdWords. We try to plan this stuff in Jira or in Marketo, HubSpot, whatever. So we all are used to technology. This is our normal life within marketing. But when it comes to the process of creating the content itself, there's something that's absolutely not data-driven. So if you ask most people how they write content, the answer will be, okay, we use Word, or we use a blank sheet of paper, or some they just write in a notepad. But the thing is, if you use Word and you do not have any data for the writer to give him a better understanding about the user intention, to give him a better understanding about the market, there's a lot of miscommunication that can kind of probably go wrong. And when you, and maybe this is your typical feeling, when you talk to your writers, maybe you feel like this guy. So you talk and talk and talk, and the problem is sometimes they don't listen. Sometimes you talk to writers and they believe they are the subject matter experts, and you don't need to talk to them. They know everything. But the reality is, if you take Word and I give you the task, hey, come on, please write something about avocados. And that sounds super easy, writing about something about avocados, but to be honest, that's such a huge topic. There are hundreds of thousands of searches behind avocado-related topics. And so you can't just open Word, have a blank sheet of paper, and start writing about avocados. Normally, you have to make super long research to understand what does the user actually want. And this is what we do really care about. So within Searchmetrics, because we started within SEO, we always wanted to help companies to become more successful in search. And if you want to become more successful in search, you have to think about the user. So remember the presentation from Will Reynolds yesterday. It's about what does the user want? Why does he want the stuff? When does he want the stuff? On which device does he want the stuff? So if you do not have this data, how can you make decisions? And that's the problem. And since 3.5 years, we are working on a solution and algorithms with the data science team, with the product management team, to kind of give suggestions that kind of help marketers and writers to overcome these kind of gut feeling moments. Exactly. So another thing, it's another problem. So when you talk to writers, they they expect simple information. They want to have a simple briefing. And in the past, the problem was we wanted to give them super simple information, and we ended up by telling him, hey, just use the word avocado, for example, quite often in your text. And then you become relevant. So there is text. So this, for example, this text is live. If you just search for avocado, it has a pretty good ranking. But if you look at the text itself, all these highlighted areas, this is where avocado is mentioned. So in total, in a text that's not super long, the term avocado appears over 200 times. So if you read a text and in each sentence avocado is mentioned, I mean, you feel kind of awkward after reading the text because it's not about what you really wanted to read, maybe like about the health benefits or about how to grow an avocado. So this is also something where I believe the writers could get better better texts when they have more data. To get data, and this is maybe something you also use too, you use tools. I mean, like Answer the Public, that was yesterday shown by Will as well. But if you put in avocado and Answer the Public, you get almost 700 recommendations about avocado. Avocado oil, avocado A or B, avocado salad. So a lot of different things. And then sometimes stupid stuff, like avocado song triple. What does it mean? And if I get 700 recommendations back, what do I do with them? So there's no real value for me if I have a lot of data. So, but we need better data because we need the data to understand the user. So you can also use the keyword planner. It's another free tool that you can use. But still, again, here, you get hundreds of suggestions, and there's no meaning for you how to utilize them. So, and that's why, like I said, it's so important for us to understand what makes successful content, I mean, what is the DNA of successful content to non-successful content that we invested a lot of time to really shed a lot of light on, okay, what should you do to become relevant, to really kind of fulfill the user intentions. And we came up with a solution we call Topic Explorer. So this is how it looks live. But let's stick with the avocado example. So when you put in something like avocado, what we want to do is we want to get also all these different topics all together, but then we cluster them. You see here in the chart different nodes. You see a graph, and important is that you take a look on the clustering and the colors, because one cluster here is about the nutrition and the health benefits of avocado. Because when people search for avocado nutrition or avocado health benefits, they actually expect the same content. They have the same intention because they want to understand what's in an avocado and how can it help me. But then if you look at another topic, avocado tree, for example, avocado trees is a topic that also has a super high search volume, but it's a different intention. Because when someone, and if you open this graph, so you see it's expanding as well, and if someone searches for avocado tree, they're more interested in how can I grow an avocado, what should I do to grow an avocado, etc. So it's a different intention. So it means if you just use a lot of data with hundreds of keyword suggestions and then you start writing a text, you don't actually know what does the user wanted. And this is super important for us, that we help marketers to find out what does the user want and why and when. And this is part of what we call Topic Explorer. The next thing, and this is also super important, when you want to understand this whole concept is most people stick still with this keyword concept. And the reason why they stick with that is because this is how they use a search engine. So if you go to Google or if you talk to your phone, you have one specific query. You ask Google, for example, how to grow an avocado. And this is one specific keyword. But if you really want to understand what does the user want, you have to get rid of this concept and you have to think about why is a topic more important. So I have a couple examples that I prepared for you. And this is also important because in the age of machine learning, search engines are so advanced that they actually understand the meaning of content. So it's not about a keyword, because if I search for something, how to grow an avocado, a search engine would understand what does the content mean and how is it helpful for the user, and then based on the information, it would rank the content. And because I'm using search engines here quite often, the reason I'm using search engines is because they really kind of found out what kind of content is relevant for a search query and when. So if you reverse engineer that knowledge, you can create much better content. So let me give you 2 examples. If, from our perspective, we use our graph that we built, and I put into our graph Star Trek plus Captain plus 60s series, I get back James T. Kirk. Because this is actually what the user wants to see and read about. It's James T. Kirk, but it's not about that keyword. It's about Star Trek and Captain and 60s series. Or if you then ask Star Trek and Captain again, plus the next generation, you get back Jean-Luc Picard. So this is how we do it. So we index a lot of content. So we have almost 1 billion of these search queries and the content behind it. If you index all that stuff, you can build vectors around all these different topics. And if you continue, so let's take, for example, just Anakin, and you add something like evil to it, you get a vector, and then you land at Darth Vader. So it's really not about the keyword Darth Vader. It's about what was the name or who became the evil Anakin, and then it's about Darth Vader. It's the same when you ask Google, for example, what's the movie about the 2 dumb guys? You get back Dumb and Dumber. So you get a specific answer. So, or if you ask Google, what was the movie where they made fun of Star Wars? So what get you back? Spaceballs. Exactly. So it's not about Spaceballs, the keyword in the moment, it's about the answer. This is exactly this concept. Or if you add Jean-Luc Picard and you add evil, which is the same dimension, so it's the same distance, you get back Locutus. So everyone who's familiar with Star Trek knows what I mean, so when he was assimilated. But if you then look at these concepts again, you also find similarities, because you see that the evil guys, Locutus and Darth Vader, they have a short proximity to each other because they're both evil. And if you look at the other guys, Jean-Luc Picard and Anakin in that moment, they're also clustered very closely to each other because they're both good people. So this is this concept, what we mean with topics and these relationships. Okay, let's talk about problem number 2. How do I know what the user wants to read? How do I know it? One thing you can do, for example, and that's super cool, stuff like Answer the Public, they do not just provide keywords, they also provide questions. And this is important because when you put in the topic avocado, you get stuff back like how to grow an avocado, it's a typical how question, or what are the health benefits of avocados. So if you are a WebMD, for example, and you want to write about the health benefits of an avocado, you should definitely listen to all the questions that people ask about the health benefits, because people also ask stuff about is the monosaturated fat in avocado healthy or not. So and then in that moment, and this is something we do as well, we cluster all these questions. In that moment when you answer these questions, you can create meaningful content because this is what the user expects. The user doesn't expect just a long text where the word avocado is mentioned a lot. He expects to have concrete answers. So this is what he wants. But the next question what you should have is this measurable? And maybe you remember a presentation from yesterday where Pavan from IBM Watson was talking about machine learning and how machines learn, and Watson mainly is based on questions because this is what Watson actually wants to do, to answer these questions. And in the end, if you really kind of try to understand the concept, in the end everything is measurable. So if the user has a question about avocado health benefits, you can analyze with data what does he actually wanted. You can do it by your own. You can look at, for example, conversion rates. So how long does the user stay on your site? If you use something like Crazy Egg, you can look on how he's browsing on a page. You can kind of look how people really consume the content. But what we try to do is we try to put something like this into a score. We call it content score, super simple, I know. But actually, if you look at something like search engine results and you kind of go through all these different pages, like I said, Google is able to determine which source is most relevant. And I have two different examples here. The first one is a page that really talks about proven health benefits of an avocado. If you look at the page, it looks very good structured. They have lists. They really talk about the health benefits. That's why they also have a high content score, not because they're ranked #1, no, because they really talk about the health benefits of an avocado, which is something you can analyze. And if you click on another very authoritative page, health.com, if you go to this page, you see there's only an image gallery with recipes about avocados. Some of these recipes, they also mention health benefits. But if you, as a user, search for the health benefits of avocado, very likely an image gallery with recipes is not what you expected. And that's why this page, with just an image gallery and a little bit of text, got a score of 17%. And if you kind of make this on scale, and this is what we do with the data science team, is we analyze hundreds of millions of pages of content, you can actually correlate this with success or non-success, and this is how it looks like, that normally pages that are higher in ranking, they have a higher relevance because search engines, and not just Google, also other search engines, they figured out already why this content is more suitable. All right, so a lot of technical stuff. Let's talk a little bit about brands. So if you work for a big brand, or if you are in an agency and you consult big brands, I believe these examples, or the following examples, are very familiar to you. Because if you are a big brand, you always have that kind of tunnel vision. You talk in your marketing language, you talk to the PR department, to the marketing department, and you all know what to talk about, right? So if you are Adidas and you have a new sneaker, you talk about the new sole, because this Boost kind of material is maybe the best material ever. But the user wants to find the best sneaker. He maybe wants to find the most comfortable sneaker. He maybe wants to know if the sneaker is washable or not. So users, they have different questions in mind than often the marketing departments think about. That's why I thought it makes sense to take a specific example. In that case, it's Best Buy, a brand that you all should know. And that's why I took also two different phones that looks very similar that you can buy in a Best Buy. So imagine the situation, you're not sure which phone you should buy. So I took specifically two older phones, iPhone 6 and Samsung Galaxy S5. They're not the newest models anymore, but what brands often forget is, even if you have older products or older things, that doesn't mean that there's no demand behind anymore. So if you can't imagine, but for this search query, iPhone 6 versus Samsung Galaxy S5, there's still over 30,000 searches on average per month, even for older phones. So I thought, if that's the case, if people do not know, should I buy the iPhone or should I buy the Samsung Galaxy phone, I thought, okay, let's take a look if there's any bestbuy.com page ranking for this query. Because if I go into a Best Buy store, I can just ask one of their employees, I can see both phones, I can ask the employees, hey, what are the advantages? And they can tell me, okay, this is the screen resolution, that's the battery life, this is their operating system, these are the disadvantages of this, and so on. So the thing is, on the first two pages, there's no Best Buy ranking, so they definitely failed. And maybe it was because of their SEO, they didn't know how to kind of optimize their pages, but the reality is, there's huge search volume behind these searches because this is kind of an informational search. It's very early in the beginning of the sales funnel. And like I said, if you look at the search volume, at the moment it's about 37,000 searches a month. This is super high search volume that at the moment Best Buy is not capturing. Then I thought, okay, does Best Buy even have a page about comparing phone models? So I was asking specifically with the site query in Google, give me a page that is somehow optimized to iPhone 6 versus Galaxy S7. And as you can see, they don't even have any page about comparing these phone models or other phone models. But again, like I said, if you look at the sales funnel, so the customer journey, yesterday, for example, one of my colleagues was talking about micro moments. So these micro moments are different events in the whole customer journey. So if I want to buy a new phone, that doesn't necessarily mean I know exactly which phone, and that doesn't necessarily mean I go to bestbuy.com directly. I just buy the phone and I'm done. This is not how it works. Online, I have all options. I can search for reviews. I can search for other users who maybe bought these phones. I can just maybe ask Google, hey, what's the best smartphone at the moment? So that's really top of the funnel. That's in the awareness phase. I'm aware of, I want to buy something, but I don't know what it will be. When I'm considering maybe two different models like iPhone 6 or Galaxy S5, or maybe now it's iPhone 7 and the new Galaxy S8 that's just going to be released, there's significant search volume behind. If I then made a decision, I make a transactional query, so I want to buy an iPhone, or maybe I want to buy it cheap, whatever I want, and then if I bought the phone, I'm in the retention phase, and you should definitely keep the customer relationship. And if you compare all these search volumes behind these different queries, you see top of the funnel, like for best smartphone or for comparing two different phone models, you have significant search volume, and this is something where I believe the big brands, they're all struggling because they have no clue about this. They build all their pages, they have their product pages, they look great, and they optimize the conversions on these pages. They change the button color from blue to red to orange. They change the canvas, they change everything. But what they mostly forget is that the most search volume are top of the funnel. They are way before the user is going to make a concrete transaction. Okay, let's talk about another problem, and that's a serious problem. There's a phenomenon in the publishing world that's called publish and forget, and that's something that's also translated to the normal corporate world. That means when you have a lot of writers, it could be internal writers or external writers, these writers, they're mostly utilized to write new content. And it makes sense because they're paid for new content, right? I mean, there's a model behind, okay, you get paid by a number of words, or you get paid by an article, whatever. So it means you publish and publish and publish and publish. But imagine again this avocado example. If you want to talk about the health benefits of an avocado, how often do the health benefits of avocado change? Not that often. So it really makes sense to take an existing content and optimize this content over time, because when users have more questions and you want to talk maybe about a specific diet where maybe an avocado could really help, where there is a benefit, you shouldn't create a new page about a specific diet and talk about avocado health benefits again, because that's internal cannibalization. You should optimize existing content. I will show you what it actually means and give you a couple examples. But the problem of this publish and forget phenomenon leads to this. So according to some studies, the global budget for digital content production is about $145 billion. So that includes white papers, ebooks, and so on. That's really all about digital content. But when you then take a look how much of this content is consumed, there comes a ridiculous number of content which is not consumed. 80% of the content that's being produced is not consumed. So yesterday, for example, I had a very nice conversation with someone from IBM, and she was kind of talking about the skills and the good content that the technical writers write at eBay, like the technical specifications about products or processes, and this content is not visible. It's created, but it's not visible, it's not found, it's not what people can easily find and consume. So, and if you imagine just this situation, that 80%, so $116 billion are wasted because this content is not visible, not found, because it's also often newly produced. And if you then come to the following thing, so you all know that Content Marketing Institute, they make surveys every year with big brands. And one question of this survey is, what are the top challenges of B2B or B2C content marketers? And funny is, over 50% of these people answered producing engaging content is one of their top challenges. So I asked myself, really, if 80% of the content is not seen or wasted, you should produce less content and focus more on the content that you produce. Then you can make it more existing. And then the next answer here is 50% have a problem in measuring the content effectiveness. So it means that if you have a content budget and you don't know how to measure it, why do you produce so much content? That leads me to the next example. Does it really matter to produce a lot of content all the time? Does it really matter? Because in that moment when you figured out, okay, I somehow get some visitors with the content, I just produce a lot of the stuff. That could be a simple calculation. Let's take one example. So most of you should know About.com. About.com is in the content marketing world since the mid of the 90s. I would say they invented content, mass scalable content online. They have been there much longer before Demand Media, and they screwed up definitely. They have been before many, many others. But if you look at About.com right now, they still have over 500,000 pages indexed, but they had a couple million pages indexed. So in their lifetime, they produced millions of articles, and they published these articles online. So when they published millions of articles, they had hundreds of millions of cost only for the content production already. If you look at their visibility in search, that's only search related. It's not including social or direct traffic. This is only about search. But if you look at their visibility within search engines, in the last 2 years, they almost lost all the visibility. So their progress is kind of pretty negative. But imagine they have over 500,000 pages still indexed, but almost nothing is found. If you then, because I'm really a guy, I'm following stuff content that's really good. So if I see something like About.com that's just mass production, I thought, okay, let's because I really like cooking, so I thought let's take a look on their recipe section. So if you just filter the content at About.com just about recipes, you still end up with over 17,000 recipes. And then I was looking, okay, are there other players in the recipe space like thekitchen.com, and looked at their amount of recipes, and I found that they, for example, at thekitchen.com, they only have about a third of the number of recipes in About.com. So just keep this in mind, because now we develop a strategy out of this. One strategy: specialize, do something really good. And when you do it, like thekitchen.com, you will see the progress. So here, for example, in the last 2 years, the kitchen had grown over 50% by only focusing on recipes and everything around, also about health benefits of not just avocados, a lot of other stuff. And now there comes something super cool. If you compare the kitchen, which is way, way smaller than an About.com 2 years ago, and About.com was much, much larger than thekitchen.com when it comes to traffic, online traffic. But if you look at their current performance, thekitchen.com overtook About.com just last week. So it means that if you specialize on something and you make it really, really good because you understand the user, and I will show you what it means later with a couple other studies that we made, then you really can have a super great performance versus when you believe you can just produce everything on scale, then you can definitely have the problem that you do not get found for anything. The good news is that About.com, they just started to build a couple new brands, like the ones here, like the Spruce or Thought Co. and they just started to outsource content to these new brands because this is exactly what they're doing now. They're specialized now. They take the food content out, they take the health content out, they take their automobile content out, they put it on a specific domain to become subject matter experts only on these pages. And you can see this here. They just started ThoughtCo and the Spruce. So you see just here their visibility went up significantly, because if you isolate what really matters and you improve it only there with better templates, a better structure of the content, then the user is going to be happier. And then there's something else, another strategy that you should consider and go home with kind of really this consideration. This is cleaning up. It's like your house, right? I mean, we all are a little bit messy, and we are all a little bit lazy. So I can imagine that you have a lot of content that maybe you should get rid of. Maybe old content, outdated content, or content that you maybe should merge with something else that you have. And I have one example that's phenomenal, because this is a company that was, I mean, we work with, but they thought about this process of getting rid of old content for half a year. They have been really afraid of this, because they thought, okay, when we get rid of content, we lose the internal linking, then we have a completely unpredictable maybe search results, because if you crawl through the page, you lose the internal link equity, and maybe some users, they still want to see this old forum content. So there were a lot of concerns. They were really afraid of getting rid of this stuff. So it took us half a year in working with them out a strategy that was a couple times then approved by the C-level, and this is what happened. So it's a German project, but it's similar to care.com. So it's called pflege.de, but it's like care.com. At the moment, they only have 243 pages in the index in Google. Only 243 pages. That's it. But look at this. There was a moment, if you see the curve here, so you see it's growing significantly since a specific event. And at this event, they removed 95% of their content. So imagine this. You remove 95% of your content, and the rest that you have, you really optimize for the user intention. I will show you a little bit what they did. And since then, since this event, they had a growth of 240%. They're incredibly successful by removing stuff and making what's left really good. Because this is a strategy you should consider as well, not just removing stuff, updating stuff as well. So let me show you here in two screenshots how the page of this care.com German example looked in 2013. So this was the page. There was one stock photo above the fold, and then you saw just a lot of text. Just a lot of text. So maybe again. You see, form, then a stock photo, and just a lot of text. So this is what they had in 2013. When we convinced them, hey, with our data-driven approach, you should really look at the user. You should look at the questions that people ask. You should look at what they want. You should optimize your content on a data-driven basis. This is how the page looks today. So you see, they built in a useful list. So this is about caring about elderly people. So if I want to get information about, can I put my parents, oh, that sounds funny. Are there some organizations that do really care about my parents when they're kind of old and I can't care about them? So they put stuff like this in these lists. They structured this content because I want to see this content as fast as possible. Then they had more content, and they made it very user-friendly because they put in a lot of structured data. They put in different paragraphs, because if I want to kind of read something about a specific topic, I can cluster this topic on the page, and I can read only this, and this is much better than just having a long-form text. So this is what they did, and they did it with just 243 pages, they optimized it. So that's why they are so successful. And if you look at the success also when it comes to their search engine performance, they rank with an average of over 30 keywords with each page, versus an about.com ranks with 1.3, 1.4 keywords per page. So it means it's not about the volume, it's about the quality. And caring about quality is something that sometimes when you follow this publish and forget paradigm, that you just can't do it because you create new content all the time. And this is how it looks, kind of how we see brands should kind of care about their content. We call it holistic content, because when you understand the questions, the problems, the concerns, when you really understand what does the user really want, you can create something where you can step out of the void, where you can definitely become super successful. And this is something that you have in your own hands, and it's not needed that you are a super well-known brand. Everyone can do this. Okay, what does it mean for your business? Different audiences, different needs, right? So a Cardassian doesn't maybe wants to have the same content than a Klingon or than a Ferengi, yeah, or a Vulcan, whatever. So different audiences, different needs. And that's why we thought, okay, how can we analyze what are different needs and different variables for certain industries? So we at Searchmetrics, since 5 years, we are conducting what we call ranking factors. But in the past, we conducted ranking factors. They were kind of broad. So we thought we can find the magic recipes for all pages. But last year, we stopped and we said, okay, the general ranking factors, they're dead. Now we should focus on stuff that matters for certain industries. And we started with e-commerce, finance, media, health, and travel, because they're large industries and they're all significantly different, where also the user needs are significantly different. So let's start with finance. People want to feel secure today, right? So especially when it becomes about when it comes about money. So we analyzed the sector of finance and looked what is different in finance, especially to other areas, like I said, media and health and so on. And one area, and of course, I know it makes sense, but if you look at the distribution or the coverage of HTTPS, you see that 50% of all successful pages within the finance space, they already implemented HTTPS. And maybe you know, or maybe you've heard of, Google is pushing HTTPS very, very hard. So in Chrome, they already built in, if you do not use HTTPS, a small little label, not secure. Firefox, they go the same path, so they build in a lock, and if it's not HTTPS, they make kind of a cross through this lock in red, so that you see, okay, this is not secure. So, but if you compare this, you see, for example, in media, the coverage is about 10%, which makes sense, because in media, for me, it's about consumption of content. Very often, I do not leave any personal data, like my credit card details, my personal details on the page. I just want to read the news. Maybe I want to click an ad, but this is what I want. That's why HTTPS coverage in media looks very different than in finance. But when I know that this is the case, and I search for cash today, at the moment there are 2 pages, pretty good ranking, that do not use HTTPS. So it means when it comes to industry-specific factors, if you are in finance, you should really care about HTTPS. Exactly. So next, people love structure, especially when it comes to health. So I, for example, and you know how it is, the typical man flu. So I think every man knows the man flu. It's super worse. It's much worse than women's flu, right? So that's absolutely the point. I know this. So when it comes about health, we all want to read the most important information as fast as possible, right? So if I go to Google and I ask about or flu symptoms, or what can I do against headache, or the best way to fight against a hangover, I mean, especially when you're here in Las Vegas. You can see when you look at the industry-specific ranking factors, you see here there's a big gap of the usage of lists, that means structured content in health, than to all other industries. And it makes sense to me because when I search something up, again, in Google, and let's just assume Google is just like a large database that gives me relevant content. If I click on the first result and then on the 8th result, like the 8th one here is WebMD, the first one is WikiHow, and what I see in WikiHow is, okay, some nice visuals, and then I have a list, another visual, and then I have a list again. So for me as a user, when I want to get information as fast as possible, lists as content makes it easier for me to consume the content quick. When I look at, and more lists and so on, when I look at WebMD, and WebMD is phenomenal in content and content marketing. So this is not to blame WebMD here, they're actually really, really great. But in this specific example, what you can see here is, this is just text. There's no structure in it. This is just text. And imagine now, you want to get information as quick as possible because you have a man flu and you need a cure immediately. If you do not have structured content, you can't find the information. So, and I definitely have not enough time to read through everything here. So I just skip this page and go back to Google, click the next result, done. My last example is, people like to have choices. That's important. Sometimes I just do not know what I want. So like if I look for Star Trek kind of swagger stuff. And you can see this also when you look at the industry-specific ranking factors. So options, I can stripe as the number of internal links on a page. So if you have a page with an e-commerce, very likely you display many products and related products and so on. So it means, and this is here the top line, this is the average number of lists being used in e-commerce. And it makes sense that in e-commerce, the number of lists links are used more often because when I'm looking for a product, I need many options, maybe related products or products in different colors and so on. But when I compare this, and again, this is e-commerce, and I compare this here to something in health, so this is a health page. They only have 41 internal links because in health, it's about the content in that moment. It's not about having many options. Compare this, like I said, to e-commerce. That's a typical e-commerce page. You have many products on it. So that's why it totally makes sense to have many more links in e-commerce. So for you as a takeaway, it means depending on your industry, depending on the user expectation, you can adjust the content and the options you give to the people within the content. Okay, I hope you learned a lot. You got inspiration. If you have more questions, we have still a couple minutes time for a little Q&A. But otherwise, you can just come to our booth outside and just ask us all the questions you have. Thanks for your attention. Live long and prosper, exactly. Yeah.
All right, does anybody have any questions while we've got him here on stage before you have to fight for him at the booth? I can't see anything. Are you still trying to digest all of that knowledge?
There's one question.
And your alcohol from last night? Oh, we've got a question right there.
A quick one. Any quick hits on B2B versus B2C?
That's a very good question. So B2B and B2C, so that his question was, are there any differences between B2B and B2C? Yes, there are. So in B2C, it's mainly about a quick transaction, where in B2B, it's mainly about the lead. So in B2B, you have often different types of content. So for example, a white paper is a typical thing you have in B2B to generate leads. And that's why the content also should be a little bit different. most companies, they make the mistakes, they just have a little bit of content, then the white paper for download. And what we see here is what works the best, and there are some companies who actually are really good in this, like Atlassian. So maybe some of you know Atlassian. They are known for their project management tool called Jira, and they're really good in content marketing because they do not just offer white papers. No, they offer a lot of content additionally that then lead to download the white paper or to kind of get a free trial of their products. So yes, B2B and B2C is different, but it depends a little bit on what you want to achieve. And if you're wondering about these ranking factor studies, you can download them for free, by the way, so on our website.
And we've got a question in the back.
Yeah, Marcus, that was great. If you wanted to do the cleanup strategy, where do you start with that? Would you say, okay, I need to do an audit or an inventory of all my pages? Do I start with the top ranking ones? So if I want to give this to my team, I just want to give them a good direction on, we have 100,000 pages. That seems too much to handle. Where do I start to focus them in the right area?
That's a pretty good question, by the way, because this is where many things can go wrong. I have 100,000 pages, get rid of 95,000, great. So what we did with this example is, so we looked at the traffic. So we took a time frame that's long enough, so we took 18 months, because we wanted to include seasonal traffic. So if you have something like Valentine's Day that's just showing up every year, so you need to have at least 12 months or more to see if there is a traffic spike on certain URLs. So we took 18 months. The next thing what we did is on all pages that were kind of filtered, we looked at their existing rankings, because it could be that there are some pages who are very close to search traffic, but they do not rank at the moment, but with a little bit of more effort, they could rank. So we filtered out with organic search data the second batch. And then all the other URLs that were just left, we looked at, are there pages who are highly relevant, like the Contact Us page, right? I mean, the Contact Us page very likely do not get that much traffic, or the imprint page, or maybe other pages. So we also looked at strategically relevant pages. So that's why there was a little bit manual filtering involved. But then after this, we just looked at all pages we wanted to get rid of, and then found target URLs within this example that can kind of have then a 301 redirect. When people click somewhere else on this link, then they get 301 redirected to another page internally, and then we just shut down all these pages. Just at once. It was really one moment, one click, all gone. But you need to have this time frame analysis before to make sure that you do not get rid of something that very likely will bring in traffic in the future. But like I said, it really works. And that was just one example where we are allowed to share this in public. We have other examples where we did the same, and it was working quite well.
All right, since we are at the end of our time, I have a couple of quick announcements before you head out. First is we're back at 11:20 after networking and refreshments out there, but lunch, due to weather conditions, has changed to a different location. It's now at Anthony's Prime Steak Restaurant on the casino level, and that starts at noon and ends at 1:30. And then thank you so much, Marcus, for an awesome job. Really great stuff, and you can find, again, everybody's slides are on the SlideShare deck, so be sure to grab those. And don't forget to fill out your speaker cards that are on your table and hand them to folks on your way out. That's how we continue to get such great people participating at events like this. So with that, thank you, and let's give Marcus a hand.